and trainee induction programs.
Oh, that's great, sir. Thank you so much.
We have a 200-day management trainee augment program called MT Augment. So I look forward to that.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, welcome everybody, and thank you for being part of this forum this evening. I have great joy in introducing my friend Anantha Radhakrishnan. I first met Radha when actually we visited IIM Lucknow. And even at that time, we were struck by the talent he had, the sincere desire to learn and to make a difference. And for us, we used to look at talent in a very holistic way in Aisha. We were not looking for specifically knowledge of something or a specific skill. We were looking at more the capacity to learn, the capacity to think, the capacity to relate to people, and also the capacity to actually carry out the intent one has through execution. And of course, it was very important for us to understand the overall values the person had and what was the person dreaming about. And so, Radha, even at that time, appeared to us to be somebody very special. And I'm so happy that, over the years, one has seen Radha flourish and do so well. And both he and his wife, Priya, they are wonderful colleagues and friends. And, just in their company, you feel like smiling for no reason. So it's just that wonderful gift to be making others at ease and, creating an enabling environment. So with these words, Radha, may I say how very happy we are to welcome you to this forum today.
Anil, it's mutual, I must say. I admire you as a leader. I first met at Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, I think in the year 1991. And we've since been associated in various ways and capacities. One, of course, at Aisha. And then subsequently, once you are an Aisha, you can never take Aisha out of the guy or out of the person. So we've always been family. It's wonderful to know you and your family as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Radha. So may I request my fellow panelists, our students of our postgraduate program, to begin by sharing their insights on this theme today. So Ritu, you are the daughter of a Fauji, so you always go first. So go ahead, Ritu. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. So good evening, sir. It's an honor to have you here with us. And to begin with, just a small introduction about myself. My name is Ritu Gurung, and I hail from Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. And as sir mentioned, I come from a defense background, and hence punctuality and adaptability have been a part of my daily routine from the very beginning of my life. And just to give you a small just about my life before joining Soil. So I used to work as an assistant restaurant manager for 3 years, and wherein I was fortunate enough to gain maximum experience dealing with guest experience as well as handling guest complaints and also handling a huge team. So I was responsible for handling a huge team for smoother operations along with me. So it was during my time at Soil that I realized my self-worth. And I must tell you that I was very timid and unable to keep my opinion in front of others and a little afraid to take a risk. And Soil as an institute believe in fostering leadership. And hence during this time, we all had to be responsible for to take a charge for a club and be it cultural, editorial placements. And I remember sitting and reflecting on which departments to choose. And I realized that I had a natural affinity towards creative activities. Any activity related to it always excited me and I enjoyed doing it. So therefore, I decided to join the student council and led the cultural club for my batch and managed to successfully organize many events like cultural exchange with Sijinkan University and then ILC. So it was a very enriching and great experience. And after the class session, which we had with Anil sir regarding the self-worth, I realized that how each one of us is born with a purpose and has unique talents and gifts. And we must recognize our unique talents and abilities, but most of us fail to do so. So at Soil, I became aware of my special talents and have always been motivated. I realized that this is what life is all about and that we learn more and more as we live. It is our responsibility to be who we are, and we have the power to become whatever we need to be. We just need to believe in ourselves. And if you want to become that, we just need to be in the future and must act, now to produce what we desire to be in future. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Ritu. Ratnanjali, you are next.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. So I am Ratnanjali, and I have also been a PGPM 1 year student here in the soil. My journey before the soil has been, I have worked for almost 7 years, and I was into the manufacturing industry. And I remember my time when I started my journey in the manufacturing, specifically in operations. It was a bit challenging, but I think it was the support of my colleague that I could sail back through all these things. And here in soil, I think my journey has been quite fantastic. Learning with peers, working with under one domain of operations for so long years, and now moving from operations to HR, learning a lot of different subjects. The curriculum in the soil has been designed in such a way that we are actually learning the what is going currently in the industry. So it actually is helping in a way that whenever there has to be an impromptu conversation, we are eager to held these conversation without any hesitation. And if I say about the Anil sir's teaching in our first session about self leadership, the topics that we learned, like appreciative inquiry, collective thinking, community building, I think these are of course one has to learn something technical to grow, but these are some of the aspects that one should always be learning to grow as a leader. It's important. So I think the journey in the soil has really shaped me to take up the challenges. I realized my self-worth here in soil while doing assignments, taking up challenges, that I can be an active leader. And that's how I was able to participate in recent one of the forum, HR Conclave Forum, where we invited guests from different industry to discuss about the HR topics. So this is all about me, sir. Thank you.
And Ratnanjali was also in a Volvo Eicher. So she worked for a few years in the Pithampur plant, actually, in the new power plant there. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
After her engineering, she began from the shop floor there. That's right.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's tough, especially for a woman leader on the shop floor. She's broken some glass ceilings there already.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Even everybody would say that you are one of those person who has actually put hard work and raised above those shop floor areas. So it was really fantastic.
Typically production, mechanical engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer. Didn't do too much there. I'll talk about it, but for a year maybe. But this is wonderful, Ratnanjali, that you've actually gone into a domain which doesn't see so many women leaders. And the fact that you've been there and contributed in a company like Aisha in their Pithampur state-of-art plant is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rohit, over to you.
Good morning, sir. I hope you are doing well. So my name is Rohit Ghosh and I hail from Calcutta, the city of joy. So I have been associated with Tata Consultancy Services for the last 5.5 years, and post my completion of PGPM, I'll be joining back TCS again. So I was working as a business analyst for my client, where my day-to-day work was, to understand the business requirements and to make a document and, understand all the basic requirements that could be fulfilled from my side. And I was a single person handling all the accounts from offshore and on-site. So currently I'm heading the analytics club of the college as well. And what I learned in the soil in this last 1 year is that I didn't realize that I had the capability to, counsel people very good, nicely. But after attending Anil sir's class on the self-leadership, what I realized is that, you should focus on your strength, and you should be able to grasp what you can make out of your strength rather than focusing on what your weakness is and running after them. So that one point stuck to me on that very day. And from the very next day, I started focusing on what my strength was, and listening thing I improved, and I thought that it was a good part of my capability, and I improved on that part. And right now I have been able to gel up with a lot of people in my college and different cohort as well in HR, BLP. And that is how I think my self-worth has improved over this last 1 year.
Thank you, Rohit. Soundarya.
Wonderful, Rohit. Nice to see someone from TCS. We compete, of course, in the marketplace, but nice to see you and how your journey has been, and especially counseling people is an awesome area. Ritu, coming back to you, you caught my attention on 2-3 things. I noted it down when you spoke. A, of course, the Lucknow connection, because I was at Lucknow too.
Right, sir.
And two, this ability to come out of your shell, which is an issue with number of people and whom I see were very capable. And the fact that you're doing that very well and you use the word purpose. I like that word very much. We'll talk a little more on that as we go along. And of course, coming from what I call the moment of truth business, all service business, Rohit knows, including IT, ITES services, and of course, the restaurant business, the hotel and the restaurant business, are very, very moment of truth businesses. Then and there, you need to please the customer. And it's very tough. The fact that you've been there, you're using your strong values in delivering it, again, awesome. Great stuff. Go on.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, Soundarya.
Yes. Hi, sir. Good evening. Sir, I'm Soundarya. I come from Hyderabad. So basically, I come from a judiciary family. So I have my bachelor's in architecture, sir. So which is a 5 years course. Then after that, I joined a construction firm, which is Legend Estates. And I was working 3 years there as a CAD manager. So while working there, I also pursued a PG diploma in cyber laws from Nalsar, Hyderabad. So after that, I resigned from there and I wanted to go into some different field. I was always very enthusiastic about learning into different subjects. So I joined soil here. So in soil, my journey is very. I have to say that soil is game changer for me, since coming to realizing the self-worth when I wanted to go into a different industry, from construction industry to different industry. So I was very hesitating. I had very self-doubts, but during the process of learning with Anil sir, the self-leadership and all, realizing your self-worth, what are you unique about, not just having your weaknesses in your mind, but understanding what are your strengths. So that is what really helped in my placements also, to get into Infosys, to actually understanding my worth. And then I got from construction industry to IT industry, and I got into what the dream role, what I was actually looking forward to. So that is how soil really helped me, sir.
Thank you, Soundarya. So now we turn to Radha. Radha, tell us about your story. Tell us about your earlier years, your grooming, your lineage, your family, and of course, right into different stages of your life. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, Anil. Thank you, for the forum to share. I've now spent, I got out of IIM Lucknow in 91. So let me begin at the beginning. I come from a middle class family, very traditional South Indian, groomed in Bangalore, bulk of my life, born in Chennai, but completely did all my schooling and college in Bangalore. I've seen the city completely change over the last 3 decades or so, or 3.5 decades of my growing up and visiting this city. Many years I've not been in the city because I've been in other cities as well. I did my engineering from NIT Trichy, and I'm part of a family of 2 brothers and a sister. My elder sister, the biggest premium in a family like ours was on education, first, of course, on values, honesty, humility, hard work, the 3 H's, putting in heart every time along with head. And I still, I have a theme at Infosys, which Soundarya will know, which is head and heart, because any decision I make, I look at all the head dimensions of the decision, and I look at the heart dimensions to that decision as well, which is in terms of emotion, empathy, how will it impact others, etc., along with the rationality of it, which comes in from the head. I think these are value systems which I grew up with, which have helped me. I did my engineering at NIT Trichy, mechanical. Of course, as I was telling Ratnanjali, we didn't have another single woman in that batch of 50. So you've broken ceilings quite a bit. And I know I have a niece of mine who did engineering from VJTI in Mumbai as well. So those glass ceilings are all the time getting broken. And it's happened over the last few years quite a bit in every area. And there are no single areas which are today where women leadership is not seen. Awesome to all the women leaders on this call, especially. I see Ritu, Ratnanjali, and a few others as well. Of course, Saundarya as well, who's joining us. So that's fantastic. Engineering, mechanical engineering, then 1 year in this great place called Sundaram Clayton, TVS. I joined Clayton with the hope that I will make a lasting contribution to engineering. But there's only one thing I look back at with a sense of pride. We were with a bunch of engineers. I was very fascinated by NC machining. CAD-CAM and robotics used to be big then. This time, of course, robotics is more the robotic process automation kind. That time it was more the robotics in manufacturing kind, which still has grown leaps and bounds. But so I joined Sundaram Clayton. One of the only lasting, it gets me a smile on my face every time I catch a train. And you would remember this the next time you catch a train too. If it is a Shatabdi Express and that train brakes well, the air braking system on that train, I was part of I did a small thing in it, nothing big, but there were 23 valves which together make that train brake. Okay. In my many years from the 80s to now, whenever the Shatabdi is, when I see a train accident, unfortunate one, I want to be sure it is not a Shatabdi and it's not because of not braking well, because then I feel the legacy I left behind, or the legacy the team which I worked with left behind, was not good. So we had to go to the RDSO clearances through railways. I learned a lot in that first role with a few other IIT colleagues. I learned to work in teams. That was awesome there. I learned that along the way that there was this very bright guy whom I later met at Aisha as well in the marketing arm, who was in TVS then. And I felt that there was something I was lacking, which I found that gentlemen have, which is articulation, communication, ability to collate data and present it in a much more impactful way, which as an engineer, I was a little too straitjacketed. Secondly, to be very honest with you, and there's no hiding, we used to earn 2,400 rupees per month that time as an engineer. And I found this gentleman with an MBA earning 50% more than me. Okay. And I felt he was not working as many hours on the floor like I was. That didn't mean that he didn't add value. I just felt somehow in my head that I was lacking some value added abilities. And I wanted to figure out what those were. So therein began the quest for wanting to do higher education along with my dad. Kept telling me that, just a graduation degree won't do and you need to do a post-graduation. So I did everything. You'll be wondering what this is about. My dad told me I should try IAS. So I bought brilliant tutorials all set to read IAS material in mechanical engineering and management, which are the two subjects I chose for IAS. I never got to writing the exam. So let me come to that as well, because life's always not about success. It's also about failures and learning from them on which ones you took up and did well and which ones you didn't do so well, but you have no regrets about. So IAS was one. The second was I wanted to do the CAT exam. So I did the CAT exam. And then the third one was the GATE exam, because I felt that I should do a post-graduation in CAD-CAM in the Indian Institute of Science in School of Automation, which is the best school for NC machining and automation and manufacturing. I didn't get the percentile for it, so I didn't get selected. And I had this university admissions because of the GRE, which I had done in the final year of college. I postponed those admissions by 1 year, and I wanted to pursue a robotics degree in Ohio State University because of the passion for manufacturing robotics. And I was trying to convince TVS to help me get a scholarship for that. TVS was very keen to put me into Warwick Business School. I'm happy to say my son today has gone to Warwick Business School. They wanted to put me in Warwick to help me in manufacturing, do an MS in manufacturing, but they wanted a 5-year tie up with them, meaning after I finish it, 2 years, I need to come back and work with them for 5 years. So these were the options in front of me. And then CAT happened. I got into 3 colleges, IIM Calcutta, Bangalore, and Lucknow. And then IIM Calcutta, I didn't know what hit me. Maybe I impacted the interview panel as somebody very, very, not that I knew much about what the other person perceives then. It was all about myself. So I was trying to put on a good show. He asked me, are you a Kannadiga or a Tamilian? I turned back and told him I'm an Indian, which I thought was a smart answer. But the professor felt otherwise because he felt I was trying to show off. After that, he quizzed me on Indian culture, Indian poetry, Indian history. And, I wasn't too good at the end of 4 years of engineering and being away from all of this. And of course, he wanted to see how I respond to difficult questions and situations. And I didn't do too well, but mentally very well prepared for my IIM Lucknow interview, which went well. There's Professor Mithilesh Jha then, who then moved to IIM Bangalore and taught quite a bunch of people. And Mithilesh Jha now is the dean at, I think, the Jain University, deemed university of the Jain University. So I'm still in touch with Mithilesh Jha. He was one of my very early mentors when I joined IIM Lucknow. So Professor Jha selected me in IIM Lucknow's panel. And then when I joined Lucknow, I wanted to do a degree in manufacturing or operations management, an MBA. But somehow at the end of year, you know how peer pressure works in the business schools. I was the first of the first 6 batches in IIM Lucknow to actually get an A in Professor Jha's marketing course. And that became a legacy, which created the next steps in my career. Because what happened was I did brilliantly. My paper got displayed on the notice board of IIM Lucknow for the senior batch to see, because Professor Jha used to be somebody revered in marketing. He wrote this book along with Kotler now with all Indian examples because he believed in putting Indian examples to Kotler's books and concepts. And he was a legend. And nobody had cracked an A till then in the prior 6 batches. And I was the first one to do it. So suddenly I realized that all my peers were telling me I'm too good in marketing, which I didn't realize. I'm good in structuring up things, which I didn't realize. They felt I could take anything and put a 3x3 or a 2x2 grid, which made a lot more sense at the end of it than at the beginning of it, because life is about very complex stuff and it's very difficult to bring it all together in a very structured and conceptual way. A lot of my colleagues at IIM influenced the trajectory which I took. And then, of course, the lowest ebb, and so I was called Radha Kotla for many years in IIM Lucknow. Even now, my IIML batchmates call me Radha Kotla because they think I'm only good in marketing. Which sometimes is a problem. You've added more skills along the way, but they don't see you that way because they still see you with the lenses they want to see you with. Nothing wrong. Maybe there are much more smarter people in marketing than me in the world, but which I'm sure with all humility, but my colleagues still think I'm the best at that business. Okay, so there are lots of strengths and minuses of how others perceive you, but it's also important for you to be grounded in the understanding of what others perceive you, what you think you are, and being aware is a very important dimension to self-worth. Being aware of your own mindset, being aware of yourself, and being aware of yourself is through experience, reflection. So in my many, many years now, 33rd year at corporate work across many companies, Aisha being an early one, and I'll come to Aisha in a minute. And that journey with Aisha was awesome because I met Anil on the lowest ebb of my self-worth day. Anil didn't know it. Okay, I think he knew later, but he might not necessarily recap it. What had happened was there was a lot of hype built over year 2 in IIM Lucknow that I am Radha Kotla and I had done a summer training in Hindustan Unilever. HUL used to be the #1 company on campus for marketing, along with Citi, and Citi and HUL used to compete for the best, what you call as day -1, or I don't know whether it's -1, -2, whatever that day is. I just call it as day 0, which is the beginning of the beginning. And Levers, I did my summer training. I presented to a gentleman called R.R. Nair, who's the head of Levers HUL. I presented to K.K. Sridhar, who's again been a great mentor and friend since then, who's the marketing head. I was one of the few people who were really selected in that batch to present to the board because they thought I did awesome stuff in helping them do some test marketing strategy for Lipton Masterline Bakery Fat, which was one of the bakers' delight in terms of creating great productivity and economics for the baker. So one thing I learned in that Lever summer stint was, by the way, I'm a trained baker. I've got a 7-day program from Nilgiris in baking. So Levers taught me that you need to get into the skin of the customer to understand the customer well. And that stayed with me for a long time, because you can give all the gyan in the world, but unless you wear the shoe of the customer with high empathy and actually understand the nuances of his work or her work, it's going to be difficult for you to improve your understanding of that customer. So that stayed with me for a long time. To come to the lowest ebb, what happened, unfortunately, was the panel which came to select me on day 1, everybody thought I'll get a pre-placement offer. You know how this peer pressure and hype builds up. And as luck would have it, the panel had some miscommunication between HUL and which was the first time they were hiring for Brook Bond and Lipton as well. I'd done all my work with Brook Bond and Lipton, so the feedback didn't reach the panel on time. So net, long story short, at the end of day 1, the so-called Radha Kotl of the batch didn't have a job offer. Everybody had told me through the second year that you have your job already. Lever's going to give you a pre-placement offer. And it builds up, your expectations build, natural, human. So I didn't have the job at the end of day 1. And I was shattered. I broke down, I can be honest. And I decided, for whatever reason, the next 2 days that I'm not worth it. I'm not someone who would even participate in the other marketing interviews, the day 2 and day 3. And I think Aisha was day 3 or day 4 beginning, I think. I'm not sure of the exact days, so don't worry about that. But the key thing was 2 days or 1.5 days, I was in my own shell. Ritu, to your point, feeling timid, feeling that, oh God, the world has done me in. Levers was that job. Now, how will I face my batchmates without a Levers job? And what will they think of my marketing prowess now? All the self-doubts creep in, Your biggest enemy, believe me, folks, as we go along, is your own self too. What your mind and you start believing in, because you ask all the tough questions to yourself. Nothing wrong in being honest and self-critical, but doing too much of it can really get your self-worth equation down. So that's the other trick, because when you have failures, you'll tend to blame yourself. There are 2 things we do in failure. One, completely externalize it. I'm not that person. Okay. I'm not a big believer in that. Completely internalize it. Okay. Which is, you blame yourself for everything and anything which happened in that failure. Not true. Both are extremes. Not true. When you win something, it is not that you did everything right. There are a bunch of things which fell in place. There's an element of luck. There is an element of others helping you in that journey, visible and invisible, which you may not know. Okay. So the key thing is, be critical, but don't reach a point of, and that was the point in IIM Lucknow, where I was brooding in my room and I got this call from Professor Jha telling me that you need to come in for interviews. You can't go away out of this institution without a job. That too, you're my best marketing student for the last 6 years. I can't have you go away without a job. You want a job at Nestle, I'll get it to you. They don't come to campus, but I'll get you there. Come back. So he brought me into campus, and the first person I met and the first company I met was Anil. And I had Professor Jha. I don't know what magic Professor Jha did with Anil. I was not my best self. I had a lot of doubts. I was half of what I would normally be in terms of my bubbly, impactful self. But somehow Anil saw through all that, like he mentioned now, and he brought back that memory, which is why I'm quoting that incident, for the reason that I suddenly felt someone who saw something in me, whether it's my ability to learn, my ability to bounce back from so-called failure, my wanting to make an impact and a difference to the world, show to the world that I'm much more than just a leaver's job. Okay, that really was top of mind for me at that point. And Anil, I don't know what he saw as a panelist, but I guess he sensed some of that, and he really made me feel good. I felt I would be able to find my bearings in this company. Aisha is not in my list of top 3 companies to go after at that point, to be very honest. But I had heard very positive things of Aisha from both my colleagues as well as Professor Jha. Rest is history. 2 years at Aisha, great stint, assistant manager to deputy manager in a year, launched the Aisha Motors Canter vehicle, did very well with another colleague you might have met called Vaitishwaran, who's now in Manipal as their chairperson. I got a wonderful set of people, Swami, this Aisha family we call the gang of 80s. Although I'm the gang of 90s, they still adopted me in the gang of 80s. We still meet pretty often as family. That's how Anil knows my wife, and I know Anil's family as well. The whole idea is I met this wonderful set of people. And then one day, very reluctantly, very, very reluctantly, I'd come home for Diwali. I'm talking of 1993. Okay. I'd come home for Diwali. I decided, Ritu, to your point, I overcame my timidity, overcame the risk averseness, overcame my ego. I took a phone call to wish one Mr. K.K. Sridhar, who was the marketing controller with whom I had worked my summer internship with, who had praised my work. I took a phone, wished him happy Diwali, and told him, Sridhar, how's that Masterline Bakery Fat launch going on? He said, Arey, yaar, you didn't join us after all that. So I told Sridhar, look, I didn't get a job. He said, what do you mean? I said, you guys didn't give me an offer. That's how I knew there was a communication gap and the panel didn't communicate. So the Lipton group thought I didn't take the offer. The Brook Bond group, the Hindustan Lever group didn't get this communication. Those times emails, I'm talking 90s, not the an email connected world. So paperwork in snail mail. So then I changed jobs. I went back to my dream job 2 years later with the permission of Anil and Vaiti. They told me that they felt, I had this hidden, I don't know whether it's a ghost thing in me, which said, you didn't get it. So I got an area manager role in in Hindustan Lever. And they selected me. I got a direct area manager job without doing the management training, thanks to the 2 years of work at Aisha. So at the end of 2 years, I joined in Bihar. And as luck would have it, I was supposed to join in South India. And Hindustan Lever suddenly put me into Patna. For someone who's not been in the east of the country ever, I was suddenly in Patna with 58-year-olds reporting into me. And I guess this was 93. So I can give up my age now. There's no issue on that. So 67, 93. So 23, 26 years old. And I was facing this double of my age people reporting to me. And I was wondering whether I'll again succeed. The biggest issue with self-worth is self-doubt. Okay. If you have gravity, anti-gravity, it is confidence, overconfidence, self-confidence, and self-doubt. You can put all of that in a spectrum, from overconfidence down to self-doubt to being self-critical. If I take that spectrum, I'm just creating the spectrum when I speak to you. I don't have any conceptual framework. Remember, I have a strength. I can bring a lot of structure to unstructured conversations. I'm demonstrating it here. I had never thought of this, but I'm telling you this. Very overconfident, too much of it. You think you're the world, not good for self-worth. People are not going to think that you're worth it. Self-worth is being authentic, being who you are, but also ensuring that others know who you are. And the difference between perception and reality is close to zero. It's a very conceptual model, mathematical. Self-worth, I've seen people with very high self-worth, and they are very comfortable in their skin because others know them for what they are, the honest truth about them, their strengths, their opportunities, but they know them exactly for what they are. That gives them great self-assurance, self-confidence, and self-worth. On the other spectrum are people who have strengths, but don't know what those strengths are discovering them, like most of us do through our journey of life, and struggling in accepting your own strength because you are self-critical, you have doubts, you tend to associate failures to that strength, which may not be true. Sorry, Rakesh, you said something. I see 2 comments. I apologize for.
No. After you finish speaking, I will ask Rakesh Jinsi to speak because he raised his hand. I have put him into the panel so that we can't watch his video, but he will speak something. But after you finish speaking, Radha.
Sure. I'll just wrap up another 2-3 minutes. I think, have I topped my 20 minutes, Anil? I have this one problem which people warn me on that.
Don't worry about it. You take a couple of minutes and then we'll ask Rakesh to come in. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So then if I look back, post my Hindustan Lever stint, I moved to Infosys. In Infosys, the last 6 years, I'm the Chief Empathy Officer. I call it CEO, but others call it CEO. I call it Chief Empathy Officer. Someone who empathizes with clients, empathizes with associates, empathizes with our society around us, creating employment in the countries we operate, being compliant. I'm happy to say 50,000 associates now this quarter. We'll hit about $1.5 billion of annualized revenue and about 250 plus global clients. If you had asked me when I started my journey with Aisha or even earlier with Sundaram Clayton, would I be the CEO of a global company doing $1.5 billion business across the globe? My answer would have been absolutely no way. I don't think. So it is not that I dreamt very big, very early. Okay, it's a step-by-step process which you go through because having confidence in yourself. I've done multiple roles within Infosys, earned my stripes through consulting, through moving from levers to Infosys was a very tough call because I had to move industry from being in a core business of marketing and branding and to supply chain and retail as a consultant. And somehow after a 6-month debate, I did that call. And I don't want to talk too much about it, but maybe when one of your questions get answered, I'll weave that in. And then the last 20 years, I've done all roles in Infosys. I spent time in consulting 3 years. I spent in IT services as client services partner in the US for another 5. Then I moved to the BPM business. I've headed all our international centers. I've headed operations as COO before CEO. Before that, I was head of technology and transformation. So across each of these roles, one thing which helped me is there are good self-doubts to have when you start a role. Would people accept you? Would they listen to you? Because for example, when I moved to Infosys, why should an engineer I'll give you one quick example to bring in humor. Murthy was there first in induction meeting. We were 4,000 people. I was the 4,000th person. If I joined in the morning that day, I would have been the 3,000th person. 1,000 people joined that day. I went in the morning, it was too crowded, decided to go in the evening, and 1,000 people had joined before me. That was Infosys for you in 2000. We were growing like dramatically fast. Y2K and then great growth. So Murthy walked in, all of us were introducing ourselves. I was unfortunately the first person. So he asked me, what languages do you know? So I said, I know English and Hindi and Kannada and all of that. And everyone in the room burst into laughter. Everyone, including Murthy, because he couldn't help himself. He was talking about what programming languages I knew. Okay. And I realized the joke was on me when the next person who spoke, when he answered languages, he said, I know C++ and I know Visual Basic. That's when I realized I had messed up completely. And then that spread as a joke because that is the first batch of business people, lateral business people who were brought into Infosys. And hence everybody started thinking that these guys want to add value. Till we started adding value by creating business solutions along with technology. So self-doubt is good, but too much of it can take you to self-criticality. Okay. With that, I pause, learning all the time, being inquisitive, asking questions, not being afraid of failing, and dusting yourself. As the beautiful saying goes, you don't fail when you fall down. You fail when you don't get up. So the key thing is, if that day in the day 3 of interview, I had locked myself up in my hostel room, if I didn't wear my suit and walk into the building again to meet Mr. Anil Sachdev, I wouldn't be where I am today. Okay, I'm very, very honest because it's a journey. And you start your journey very, very worried about yourself, self-critical, blaming yourself for many more things than what the world put on you, finding yourself completely wronged. It emotionally puts you down. And that then ensures your self-worth never shows because others see you as being skeptical. Others see you as somebody wounded. My mother used to have this saying, and I'll close with this, I promise. I learned from my mom. She's no more, but every time I speak of my mom, she was not a graduate. All of us are undergrad, grad. She had finished her 10th grade. But I can tell you, she can put the best CEO in the world to shame, like most of our moms can, to be very honest. We don't give them the opportunities because they didn't have the world that we have. And she used to tell me that this example is, again, I used to be in the US, mom used to be in India. I used to worry for her because in the US, as an Indian, you read only things which are bad because that's where the press makes money. So I used to read articles which say 2 people got murdered, 2 old people got murdered in Bangalore because some guy in the morning entered their house. And my mom had this habit of getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and she had this other great habit, which is one of the greatest habits I am trying to ape. She used to invite people who were cleaning the floors of the road into the house at 4 a.m. in the morning because they're the only ones working. And she used to invite them at 4:30 into her home to give them a cup of coffee. That's her empathy at her best because she felt they needed that coffee. And she felt she's their mother. I used to tell her that those people are going to kill you one of these days because they know you are alone and you wear all these gold ornaments. And, it's a pretty ripe target for anyone unknown to you. And this is the saying she used to tell me. She used to tell me, look, if I look at them with the eyes of a mother, they will look at me as a mother, period. They cannot look at me as somebody whom they can rob from. That is what today our management schools teach us. If you wear rose-tinted glasses, you see everything around you as rose. That's the negative way of saying this. But if you see them with empathy and you show them a certain role model figure, which you are, which you truly are, it's not put on. That is what my mom stood for. And why I tear up a bit is because she told me that, look, you're not here, you're my son. But if I need help, these people are going to help me, not you. Because you're going to fly down from the US, it'll take 48 hours. And as luck would have it, even though I'd relocated to India and she passed away 6 years after that, unfortunately, I wasn't there. I was traveling when she had her moment of, destiny with God. And that moment was 3 a.m. in the morning, and she had a massive cardiac arrest. People who helped her, helped my dad, not me. These people. the people whom she had supported and grown up with. So for me, there is a fundamental learning in it that your self-worth is only as good as what you think you are, and that is authentic. It can't be put on. You can't come to a stage and show something which you're not, because the next day you can't show it. And if you can't show it, then you can't have others believe you. And hence your self-worth will get diluted because you're trying to show things which you're not. So the important thing in self-worth is to be authentic, to be honest, to acknowledge your weaknesses. There are weaknesses. For example, I acknowledged it. I'm vulnerable. I told you, I have this habit. I can go on. I can talk longer than needed. Many people have told me, Radha, you spend more time than needed. Good feedback. I should be aware of it. With that, I stop. Thank you. Thanks, Anil.
Thank you, Radha. Thank you very much. And I must say that, the way Priya and you partner each other and create space for others is also something very, very special. So thank you for sharing your life story. Now, this is a time for us to ask follow-up questions. So may I invite the audience to ask questions and also my fellow panelists. So let me start the first question. Radha, when you were told that you will be the next CEO of Infosys BPM, what was the first thought that struck you? And how did you then reflect about your own self-worth? And what kind of confidence did you source from within when the news was first broken to you?
Cyril, great question. I was very happy because I had this opportunity to serve a bunch of people whom I cared for. I had started working in BPM in 2008. And believe me, the 2 years before the year I took on were not the best years in our history. The year before, we had to change CEO and CFO because of a corporate governance issue. And we had 2 years of poor performance subsequent to that with the new CEO. Unfortunate, but I'm not attributing it to any one of them, but I'm just saying it's part of the team which couldn't deliver during that period. So the first thing was I knew that I had a team which was great, waiting to be led. And I felt I have an opportunity to help them shine and do well. I was very happy because this was my 4th attempt lucky as CEO. Let me explain that. The first one was when I had applied for an IJP along with Swaminathan. But Swami was the most senior colleague. I knew he will make it. I had applied on that IJP to learn, not because I wanted to be CEO. Very honest with Swami when he became CEO too. And he didn't even apply, but I had chatted with him before he applied because I told him that you should apply. He said, you have applied too. I said, I have applied because I want the learning experience of how does a CEO IJP work. I'm not applying because I want to be the CEO. I'm not prepared to be the CEO. I'm actually inadequate. I need to learn a few more things before I put my hand up. The second time around, I went through an IJP. One of my colleagues got it, fair and square. I had an option in front of me then to quit and run or to work with this colleague of mine and make him successful. I chose the latter. I worked along with him. The third one, because of this corporate governance, they had to put a person from outside, from the Infosys group. So we all got past, people within the BPM business. The fourth time is when I got it. And I realized that I was 49 when I got it. So I thought I have a good few years to contribute. Second thought was, hey, any one of my peers could have got it too. I was just the first among the 6 people around in that group who could have got it. And now I become first among the equals. How do I figure out a way to, there's some strength in me which has helped me, which I need to nurture, making people come together, high empathy, ability to structure up things, build consensus, go through difficult conversations well. So those are the strengths I have. I sort of mentally told myself. But I also did one thing, Anil, which is true, and you can chat up with a lot of my colleagues. I got myself a coach on day 1 of becoming the CEO. I realized I still needed a lot of help. And I hence got D. Harish, whom I'd worked with in Hindustan Lever, as my coach, along with Chris Shankar, who's our group head of HR, who helped me bring that person. The first thing I told him was to go to all the peers and sit down and understand from them, peers, my wife, my friends, and get a complete 360 view of me as to what they thought was my strengths and what they thought I had to improve. And that cheat sheet for the first 6 months he worked with me has helped me immensely in the last 6 years in this role.
Wonderful. And Chris Shankar, of course, began his career also with iShares. And of course, Harish is also a dear friend. So thank you for sharing that. My fellow panelists, question from you, and audience, please ask questions from the audience as well. So fellow panelists.
Yes, sir, I will go ahead.
Yeah.
So, sir, my question is, like, you were explaining your journey, how you move from operations to Infosys, taking business processes and the another domain of industry. So my question is, there comes a time when you feel like self-down, that you don't feel what is worth inside you, and the situation from being self-down to self-worth, how you managed it, and what would be your advice to us handling such situation?
No, I think the self-down happens because you are putting yourself down, not because somebody put you down. I'm a big believer. Nobody puts anybody down. It's about how you see yourself. It's your own perception of others' perception of you. It's a little complex, but let me put it this way. What do you feel at the end of a conversation? If after this conversation, I feel, you might give me all great feedback, positively or negative feedback, whatever it is, feedback. But if I feel I didn't do very well, my self-worth out of this conversation is lower than what you would rate me as. So the first important thing is to have an internal radar. I call this the radar of reflection. This radar of reflection is between, there's this Hindi dialogue saying that, "Main aur meri tanai aksar baatein karte rehte hain." So it's the same thing. You and your soul need to speak to each other. Mr. Murthy used to tell this as a story of a sculptor in New York who built a beautiful sculpture on a 20-story building. And he was running late by more than a few weeks. And somebody went up to him and told him that, "Why are you taking so long?" He said, "Look at the back of this statue. It is not even finished." To which someone said, "No one's ever going to see that back of the statue." To which the sculptor said, "But I know no one is going to see it. But I know if I have left it unfinished." So this is where, there's an ethical dimension to it. There is an honest dimension to it, which is reflection with yourself on the prior day or after a big event in your life or a big experience. Reflect on it. Think of what you did well. Okay. It's very difficult. It's very easy to think of what you didn't do well. For example, at the end of this call, if I pen down one thing, I'll say time management. Again, it'll be the 10th time I've written it down in my book, but I'm just saying, it just helps. So the point is, how you feel about yourself is very important. Now, to your example of Infosys, and to you, Ratnanjali, you moved from manufacturing to, the fundamental principles across industry we have in our head, and you're working in your head as well, that you came from a different industry. Let's say you pick up a job in HR, or I don't know where you're planning to pick up a job. If you can tell me that, I can weave it in a little more. HR, okay, great. I did guess it was HR because you said HR conclave and forum. So now you've done manufacturing and you're moving to HR. Will they accept you? The key thing is nobody accepts you unless they see value in you. So there is value which others have seen in you. Whichever company selected you has seen value in you, for sure. No one does it because they like your face. They do it because you bring value to the company. Now, the key thing is, if you go in with a doubt, because I worked only in operations, I don't know much about HR. The key point I want to stress to you is the principles across industry are the same. Learning. Do you have an inquisitive mind? Do you ask questions? Do you look at data? Do you have enough empathy to color that data with context? Do you have an ability to be approachable? What is an ability to be approachable? That you have less ego and people can come up and talk to you. I've never felt lonely in the CEO role because I have people coming and talking to me all the time. For me, my problem is, how do I sift out the diamonds from the coal, because lots of people say lots of things. So the key thing for you, Ratnanjali, is do you have all those fundamental principles covered? If you have that, you will succeed in HR. Tomorrow you'll succeed in sales too. Just a question of applying those principles consistently in a coherent, meaningful way. And whenever you have this doubt, which you will, and I'll assure you, you will, and it's only right, because after this call or induction program with Murthy, I went back to the drawing board on the reflection the next day and I said, hey, what a mess up. Naturally, in a Infosys kind of company, languages meant programming languages. Why the hell did I assume? So you can beat yourself up to death to a point today where I can laugh about it, because it is a genuine human mistake. You know, I've come from a different industry. I don't come in with a view that Mr. Murthy didn't say programming language, and language for any outside person is about Hindi, Kannada, and English, and not about programming.
Yeah.
So I accepted it. So it's important. That's the point I'm making.
Radha, one question from Nitin Chauhan from the audience. He's saying, it was great to hear you, sir, but I have one question around how to get your mojo back when you are very critical of self and start doubting. I think you have answered it, but if you have any additional comments, how to get your mojo back when you have that self-doubt?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you when I didn't make the CEO a couple of times, as you know, the easy way of putting it is to cut your losses and run. I said that the key thing is to go back to your basics, ask yourself, what's your, you know, do I like the people around me? Do I enjoy the people I work with? Am I learning continuously? These are all the questions I ask myself. And the answers to most of it is yes. Why do I not like my colleague who became CEO? I used to like him till yesterday. Why should I not like him today? Why? Because he's going to be my boss? The answer came out because he did better than you for whatever, or the panel thought he did better than you. So be it. So I went up to him. I had a conversation with him to understand, did he see a role for me, or did he feel I'm going to be a constraint for his future organization because I'm going to be a sulky, difficult to work with, you know, a peer whom he spends 30% of his time managing without managing the business. So when I found an honest answer from him that he sees value in me and he wants me, my mojo came back. And I had lots of people ask me this question, Radha, how did you agree? I said, there's nothing to agree. I had a good long conversation with him. I realized he finds value in me and I have no ego to color. Do I have a journey to go ahead and learn few things? So I said, I'll rotate out of this role into this other role, which will help me. He said, I'm perfectly fine for you to do that role. That is really where I was looking for you to add value. So I said, great. So both of us had a win-win. So when you have a mojo issue, it is ego coming in the way. Could be, I'm not generalizing. So put that ego out, ask the right questions, go back to your source of concern. If your source of concern is someone else, go up, be honest to look into that person's eye. And I said, you know, in this example of CEO, I chatted with the CEO who made it. In your other example, if somebody's made your mojo go down, you go up to that person and understand, what did you do wrong? What could you have done better? It shows humility and vulnerability, and they will help you. There is no single person in this world who is born bad, who wants to show you as with poor mojo. Okay.
Thank you.
I can tell you that.
Thank you. So Radha, we are coming to the close of this conversation. So here are the wonderful things that I sourced from your sharing today. One, you were the person who adapted to the opportunities you got. You know, your father said IAS, you did that. But you were very honest to say, okay, I didn't make this, I didn't get that gate, but you didn't feel down. You said, okay, now I go to IIM. You go to IIM Kolkata. You couldn't make it because of some interesting experience in the interview. But then you got IIM Lucknow. And in IIM Lucknow, when this happened to you, that you were excelling in marketing and the self-image was created. And for some reason, levers those days I know was like the, you know, the ultimate job for a marketing person. And you were expecting that it's now a done deal, but then all of a sudden the news comes, it's not a done deal. But something happened to you in that period when you were in the hostel and you were brooding about it, but then some spark inside said, I have to go out. And that happened. We in Aisha happened. And something about that experience we had with you made us feel you were special. You came on board. But then, something very interesting. Later on, when you went back on a vacation for Diwali, a part of you said, I should still connect with that person. There was some intuition about it. You called that person without any expectation. Because there was no weight of expectations anymore, that conversation which came out of genuineness of connecting with Sridhar made it come alive. And then you suddenly realize, oh my God, it's just the way we look at it. Actually, these guys were still looking at it with a different perspective. So here you go to levers. But something very interesting. I think you've always taken pride in the work that you have done. You still remember the part you played in the Sundaram Clayton braking system in the Shatabdi Express. So wherever you have worked, you have developed a sense of ownership. You have taken responsibility. And that is something which has really done well for you. But one of the most beautiful moments of this evening was when you acknowledged the wisdom from our mothers, irrespective of what they have studied. And that particular lesson you learned from your mother, that at 4:30 in the morning, she calls the people who clean the streets inside and gives them hot coffee. And she says, I am their mother. This experience, and what a fantastic leadership learning experience for anybody on this call today. From that, not only have you derived a lesson that empathy is your biggest asset, it has stayed with you in such a powerful way that today you call yourself, the Chief Empathy Officer, CEO, because you made that life lesson your biggest wealth. And subsequently, what you have done, you played it fair, Radha. You played it fair. You've been very fair. Whenever life did not turn up in the way that you expected, you said, what can I get out of this? When I'm not selected for the post because the internal job posting interview process doesn't select me, you still said, I have to learn out of that experience. So there is a complete learning mindset, and you give your 110% to whatever opportunity is given to you, and you don't allow that momentary up and down to impact you. You've been very honest to say that you were down right in that college hostel, but then there's a part of you which learns, which has a learner's mindset, and which comes back. So Radha, absolutely wonderful to have you in this evening today. And thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, my fellow colleagues. And Saundarya, you are going to Infosys, so it's good that somewhere you may meet Radha in his role. So it will be nice. So, wonderful. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. And, we'll be taking a break next week on 3rd, but on 10th, we have an amazing leader to meet you. Ashraf Patel, the woman who's been voted as the best social leader globally by the World Economic Forum. And she's going to be there. So thank you very much, and look forward to welcoming you on the 10th of February now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anil, and thanks all. All the best to all of you.
Yes, sir.